cheek pressed against the cold, hard floor, a young boy felt his mouth filling with blood. "I'll ask you again, young, and I won't tolerate any more of your foul lies." The stern man wiped the blood from his hand with a handkerchief. One of his rings had split the boy's lip when he struck him. "How was it that my pocket watch came to be in your room?" The boy picked himself off the floor and tried to stop the bleeding with his sleeve. He wasn't lying. Mr. Gardner refused to see reason when it came to his precious daughter. "I already told you. Rosalind gave it to me. We were playing a game and..." "Oh." Mr. Gardner struck him again. "Ridiculous! I accept you into my home, and this is how you act? Accusing my own daughter of stealing from me?" If you just ask her yourself..." He braced himself for another reprimand, but Mr. Gardner thankfully held his temper. "Do you think I'm a fool, boy? I'm sure she'll tell me much the same. Heaven knows why, but my daughter is fond of you. No doubt she'd go along with this story of yours if she thought it would protect you." The boy wondered if that were true. Lying was one of Rosalind's favorite pastimes, and if it got him into trouble, even better. Mr. Gardner didn't know that, of course. In fact, he barely knew his daughter at all. To him, she was just another part of his collection, something he could put on display for others to marvel at, never allowed to leave the pedestal he'd placed her on. She wasn't just some doll to the boy. She was quick-witted and clever. When they played games, she would boast when she won and cry when she lost. She claimed they were enemies, but when he got sick, the maids couldn't keep her from sneaking into his room to keep him company. The boy was in love with her. "This watch is a family heirloom. It's extremely old and extremely valuable. Rosalind knows she's not allowed to play with such things." "And why on earth would she give it to you, of all people?" "She said..." The boy hesitated. He doubted Mr. Gardner would like the answer. Would it get her into trouble? "She said she's supposed to give it to the man she's gonna marry." Mr. Gardner gave a harsh laugh. "And you believed her? My daughter? Marry some orphan kitchen boy? Preposterous!" Now that he thought about it, of course it wasn't true. This was just another one of her little games. The boy's heart sank. He should have known. She'd never acted that sweet unless she was up to something. She probably intended for a maid to find it in his room so she could frame him for taking it. How stupid could he be? "I guess you would again, Robin Hood." Mr. Gardner strode to one of the display cases that lined the walls of his study and placed the pocket watch back onto its dusty cushion. He spoke with his back to the boy as he gazed over the various treasures in his case. "Go collect your things. I'll have one of the others see you out." "What?" "You heard me. I sheltered you in your time of need, and you've done nothing but spit in my face. You are no longer welcome here." "Oh, wait, Mr. Gardner, He was 13 years old. Who would want to take him in?" His payment for his time serving the Gardners had been room and board, so he had no savings either. Mr. Gardner really intended to put him on the streets? Where am I supposed to go? Doesn't matter to me, as long as it's not here. The boy grasped for something to say, but he knew there was nothing that would change Mr. Gardner's mind. He gathered himself up and silently made for the door. "And Warren?" "Don't even think about trying to say goodbye to my daughter. I won't have you upsetting her. You brought this on yourself." The boy felt a knot forming in his throat. That mean he would never get to see her again? Maybe that was for the best. He wasn't rich, or strong, or good-looking. I used to think he was, at the very least, smart. But somehow Rosalind always got the better of him anyway, so that couldn't be true either. He had nothing to offer her. She didn't need him. If anything, he must have been a terrible influence on her. After all, he was the one playing along with her schemes. Maybe in his absence, she would grow into a proper young lady. That's what was best for her. Tears were welling in his eyes and obscuring his vision. He nodded obediently and left before Mr. Gardner could see him cry. In one of the Whirlwind's passenger cabins, Detective Wren woke from a restless dream. Ever since he was a child, this particular memory had always plagued him, and tonight was no different. That bastard made my baby boy cry. I wouldn't give to have a nice dream for once. As he lay there recounting the day's events, a surge of nervous energy gripped him. The torrent of emotions he'd been trying to keep in check since he saw her on the platform was threatening to boil over now that he was alone. Of course, now would be the time she decided to come back into my life, using that silly nickname and everything. Wren wondered if she'd given her new friend his name, too. I really am a fool. All those years apart, yet here we are playing the same game as always. He didn't have a choice. There was too much at stake. A chill ran down his back, and despite the pressure he was under, he felt himself grinning in the darkness. Sorry, Robin. I'll be the one winning this time. His thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. Wren sat up and checked the time on an old pocket watch on the bedside table. It was nearly 3 in the morning. For half a heartbeat as he made his way out to the door, he hoped it was Robin knocking. That happened. Don't know if I could keep myself from kissing her. Wren wondered if she would let him. If she did, if she smiled at him with those eyes full of mischief and let him wrap his arms around her. He wasn't sure he could bear to leave her again. But that was just wishful thinking. He knew full well who was calling on him so late in the night. The door opened to a familiar face. It's this sexy motherfucker. Fletcher. Detective. I think we need to have a conversation about our new friend, Miss Robin. Of course. Please, come in. Let the game begin. Welcome back to part 2 of Red-Handed Robin. We're starting off, obviously, the Wren's route. The next morning when I awoke, Jay was already clean-shaven and dressed for the day. You look like you slept surprisingly well for someone trying to avoid being caught for murder. Still as tightly wound and frustrated as he had been last night. Yeah. Yes, well, that's probably because I'm merely an accomplice to murder. Suppose you think I deserve that. It seemed both of us were still sore about the argument we had the previous night. Are you crazy? He clearly knows what we've done. We have to stay in the cabin now. We can't continue to give him ammunition against us. I told you he may suspect us, but he doesn't have any proof. If he did, he'd have arrested us on the platform. He thinks Sullivan deserved what he got. He was practically inviting us to try and get away with this. He's not going to use the fact that he's recognized me. He thinks it would be cheating. He intends to play this game clean. You seem to have a lot of faith in this man you haven't seen for over 10 years. What makes you think you're so special? Huh? What do you mean? I'm not blind, Robin. He may have been speaking to the whole room, but his words were meant for you. He's infatuated with you. Jay avoided using the word love, but I knew that's what he meant. Was that what was making him so angry? Possibly. How childish. He doesn't even know me anymore, Jay. And he certainly wouldn't love me if he did. Oh. You've been offered a way out of this. You really going to let jealousy cloud your judgment? Frowned and looked away. Are you so sure you're the one seeing things clearly? Because from my perspective, you seem to have a rather rosy view of this detective. In case you need reminding, you're not the only one whose life is at stake here. For once, maybe you should think about someone other than yourself. I was angry, but I didn't know what to say. Spent the rest of the night in awkward silence, and it seemed there was no end in sight. Unless one of us apologized. Hated this. I hated the thought of being alone. Jay, I'm... sorry. Eh? Yo, what? You heard me. I thought I did, but I can't be sure. You do know what that word means, right? Uh-oh. He was having more fun with this than I thought he would. Been doing this for quite a while now. I suppose I'm used to it. Perhaps things got out of hand. It was selfish to drag you along with me. And as for Wren... You're right. It's been a long time. I shouldn't assume he's the same person. But... I know. It's obvious he knows we were involved, but he likely figured that out when he saw you on the platform. If he wanted to, he could have just arrested us then. Do you really think he intends to just let us go? If he's anything like the boy I remember, yes. Tell me about him. Is it that's between you? What? Why? It's private! I'm a piece in this game of yours as well. I think you owe me an explanation. Well, it's hard to argue with that. There was a kitchen boy in my household. I'm told both of his parents died, so my father took him in. We're friends. Best friends, actually. I didn't know many children my own age, and most of them were children of my father's business partners. They were all horrible. Wren was different. He asked me things about myself. He played games I liked to play. He wouldn't get angry with me if I got my dress dirty, if I cried, if I said I didn't want to do something. He didn't care if I was ladylike. He smiled and laughed all the same. My favorite game was Robin Hood. I would play Robin and commit a crime in the house. Stealing was the most fun. I stole from everyone, even my father. Wren was the sheriff and he had to solve the crime. Obviously he knew it was me. I was the only other person playing. So he had to have evidence. He had to prove exactly what had happened. He never beat me. We're evenly matched in everything else, but for some reason he always lost Robin Hood. I started to feel bad. It's no fun if you always win. Made my crimes more and more obvious. I was never once found out. It's like the evidence would mysteriously disappear before Wren could find it. One day I did something I shouldn't have. I took something from my father's office and gave it to Wren. When my father found out, he was furious. To punish me, he did something he'd been threatening to do for a long time. He sent Wren away. No matter how much I cried and pleaded, my father refused to tell me where he'd gone. Oh wow, that's an entirely different picture of seen from Wren's perspective, thinking that she never cared about him whatsoever, and yet he still had feelings for her. That was the last I saw of him. He had to leave because of something I'd done. I can't imagine he's forgiven me for that. So I'm not the first person whose life you've upended. Perhaps Wren and I should start a club. The White Knights of Princess Robin. True ending route. White Knights of Princess Robin. Hell yeah. I'm only joking. Yes. I didn't want to talk about this anymore. Too sore about that. Yeah, I need to freshen up and change. Mind giving me some privacy? Prepared for some witty remark, but Jay simply nodded and made for the door. Left alone in my room, I took a moment to collect myself. Jay's right. More selfish than I realized. Do is drag people down. It's no wonder they always leave. Memories of Wren clouded my thoughts as I started getting dressed. For some time alone, I called Jay back into the cabin. So what do you intend to do about this, detective? I've already told you what I think is the best course of action. I thought for a moment. Staying in the room wouldn't seem that strange under normal circumstances. I mean, we could, like, go to breakfast and then fall ill. Wouldn't seem unusual. Showed our face in the morning, ate breakfast, went back to their cabin, fell ill. Suppose you'd have detective then asking to check up on us, sending a doctor who's also probably a secret agent trying to kill us. As we've seen from Jay's bad ending. There were a lot of security on this train who were very keen to kill the people who killed Sullivan. Or at least apprehend us and get the jewels back. Also, I don't know if I'll show off Jay's bad ending when I do his route, but I did go back and look at it in the new updated download, and so many new portraits for these security guys. There's just so many new assets and character portraits in general. They're all really good. You've seen Fletcher? Yes, anyways. If someone came looking for us, I could say I fell ill. Yeah, there you go. But would that satisfy Wren? No. Surely he would realize that we were avoiding him. On the other hand, leaving would mean continuing to interact with the other passengers. Could have Jay slip out every once in a while, grab something to eat, take food back to the cabin, watch over Robin. It would mean more questions and more lies to keep track of. More opportunities for Wren to look for suspicious behavior. Would I be able to keep up this charade for another 24 hours? Not the only one in danger either. Looked at Jay, who was patiently waiting for my answer. We'll stay in the cabin. You're right. It's the best way to keep from implicating ourselves further. You agree with me? Don't act so shocked. Broken clock's still right twice a day. I still love her pouty face. We're bound to make a correct call eventually. I'm just glad you're listening for once. I couldn't keep you in here without resorting to force, and I'd rather not have to do that. Thanks, I guess? Briefly wondered if you would really do such a thing. Yes. You're certainly capable of keeping me here against my will. Wait, no, that was Wren's bad ending. Jay's bad ending, he drugs us and keeps us here against our will. I said I'd protect you until we reached Gales, and I intend to keep my word. There it was again. Until we reach Gale's. Kind of an obvious one, but... Jay, if we make it through this, why don't you stay with me? It's a foreign country. I'm bound to run into some trouble. It would be nice to have someone there I could trust. Won't you at least consider it? I'll give it some thought. You changed the subject. Alright. What about the case? I had thought about that too. Yet if we don't intend on going anywhere, it's not safe to leave it in the open. We'll have to hide it somehow. Anyone with any sense will be able to find it in there. That's why we won't hide it in the cabin. Eh? I've come up with a brilliant hiding place where no one will even think to look. Oh boy. I can't wait to hear this. You're enjoying this possibly life-threatening situation a little too much. All we need is a length of rope. If there's some sort of storage area we could steal from... there's no need. I have some in my luggage. He got up and began rummaging in one of the suitcases, pulling out a coil of hempen rope. That's a little concerning. What do you have that for? No comment. What do you think? Decided to leave Olaf alone and not question him any further. I mean, Jay, do you like doing the tying, or do you like being tied? I tied one end of the rope to the case and opened the cabin window. Whoa! Sticking my head outside, I searched for something I could tie the other end to. As I'd hoped, there was a handle of some sort just out of sight. Making sure both knots were secure, I handed the case to Jay. Tossed it up onto the roof. Are you sure it will stay? If we're lucky, it'll catch onto something. He leaned out the window and heaved the case upwards. I heard a muffled thud as it landed atop the car. Jay gave a tug on the rope, making sure the case wouldn't easily slip back down. It held, so he retreated back into the cabin and closed the window. What did I tell you? Ingenious, wouldn't you say? It was quite clever. I am a master thief, after all. I wonder, Master Thief, where you hide all these riches you stole in your previous successful heists. Yes, well, wealth isn't the only measure of success. Is that so? And here I thought that was entirely the point of stealing. Perhaps you should leave it to us professionals, then. I suppose you're right. With the jewelry safely hidden, Jay and I settled in for what we'd hoped was the rest of the trip. Sadly, that was not to be. A little while later, we heard a knock on the cabin door. Made to stand up, but Jay blocked me with his arm and answered instead. A familiar grinning face greeted him. Mornin'! Or should I say, afternoon. It was, of course, Detective Wren. Aye. Perhaps it was just my imagination, but he seemed a little worse for wear. Thought I could just make out the faint dark circles forming under his eyes. He was up early, after all. What do you want? I had half expected this. Wren wouldn't be satisfied if his opponent dropped out. Sorry for the intrusion. Did the two of you sleep well? I said, what do you want? Not a morning person, then. I understand. You see, my investigation has come to a rather abrupt halt. You don't say. I made him brighten up a bit. Shocking, I know. My keepers wouldn't be satisfied unless I left no stone unturned. So I'm here to ask a bit of a favor. What sort of favor? I was hoping the two of you would consent to a search. Jay looked ready to slam the door in the detective's face. I approached the two of them and placed a hand on Jay's arm, trying to will him to relax. I thought you said you didn't have the authority to search anyone without just cause. You're a good listener, Robin. I sure did. You're right, I can't search your room against your will. That's why I'm asking for permission. That's why I'm asking for your consent. Exactly, thank you, Wren. I've been making my way through the passenger cars, asking everyone the same. So far, everyone else has agreed. It's made my job much easier. You'd be welcome to observe me, and I'm also being monitored by Scribe here. I gestured to a man I hadn't noticed until then. Ah, hello, Scribe. Yes, that's one of the guys from Wren's Bad Ending. A train attendant was standing just behind him in the hallway. So I can assure you, won't be doing anything unscrupulous. You do, of course, have every right to say no. He didn't finish his statement, but I understood him regardless. If we refuse, it'll make us look all the more suspicious. The case is hidden, at least. There shouldn't be much else for him to find. Oh boy. Why not? By all means, Detective, do as you see fit. Open the door wide for Wren and the attendant to come in. Go ahead. You won't find anything anyway. Jay gave me a nervous glance, but stood out of the way. I appreciate you being so cooperative, my lady. Wren addressed me with a deep bow that reminded me of when we were children. Gave a playful response in return. Anything for you, Detective. Yeah. I thought I saw his face go a bit red as he turned away to start his search. If I had any hopes that Wren would go easy on me, I was wrong. He very methodically worked his way through the room, checking even the most inconspicuous of hiding places. He even asked to go through our luggage, which I agreed to. Sorting my things seemed a bit difficult for him, though. Embarrassed to be handling a lady's delicates, Detective. Not in the slightest. It's part of the job, after all. But he hardly even looked at as he rifled through them. He hastily stuffed everything back into my suitcase and moved on to Jay's. You have a lot of rather menacing things in here. Is that so strange? He is a bodyguard, after all. All of it is legal. I'm sure it is. By the time he was done, Wren looked exhausted. Everything seems to be in order. Thank you again, Robin. You've been most helpful. There's just one other thing. Wait for the attendant to step forward. Uh-oh. Ticket, ma'am. Pardon? Oh. Scribe has been checking everyone's tickets as we go. Killing two birds with one stone, as they say. Ticket. Wren was there when we boarded. He knew what I had said about the red splotch on it. Oh fuck, I don't remember what I said. But this attendant examined the ticket more closely. Why did he need to see it at all? Wren must have sensed my hesitation. Unfortunately, this is something you can't refuse. When you boarded this train, you agreed to play by its benefactor's rules. Just a moment, I'll go get it. I went to my bag and began slowly rummaging through it. The ticket was in my coat pocket, but I wanted to buy some time to think. If I said I couldn't find it, what would they do? What happened to stowaways on trains? Did they get put in the brig? Did trains have those? Perhaps I could make the splotch the least conspicuous thing about it. There was still some cold coffee in a cup on the table next to me. It'd be no trouble at all to accidentally spill it. Wren was sure to see through such a cheap trick. He wouldn't be able to do anything about it, would he? Oh, silly me. Here it is. Pulled the ticket from my pocket and made the decision. Oops! As I turned, ticket in hand, I knocked the coffee cup over. Coffee spread across the paper and stained it a dark brown, covering up the red. Oh no, I hope it's still readable. I handed the sopping wet ticket to the attendant. Oh, right. Looking rather disgruntled, he held the ticket between two fingers and examined it. Oh, what an inconvenient accident. I hope you're alright. Yeah, he saw right through us. Wren gave me a look of mock concern, but his smiling eyes betrayed him. Don't look at me like that. What other choice did I have? There was so much the attendant could glean from the sopping wet paper, and so, with an annoyed sigh, he thrust it back at me. I suppose that's it then. We'll be off now. Just a few more people to bother before we're done. Two of them started down the hallway, but Wren spun on his heel. I almost forgot to say. I hope to see you in the lounge later, Robin. Oh, we're not. He cut me off before I could decline. You've become quite popular among the other passengers, you know. Many of them were asking about you when you didn't show up to lunch. Surely you wouldn't deprive such an eager audience of your presence. And besides, you seemed so hungry for attention yesterday. Others might find it odd if you suddenly decided that you preferred the privacy of your cabin. He gave me a sly wink and disappeared down the car. You tricksy little fox. Jay slammed the door shut. Persistent little prick, isn't he? Yeah? I sighed. He's already searched us. What does he plan to do? What does he plan on doing if we don't go? We should have the upper hand now. Yet Wren was still insistent that we show our faces. Do you know something we don't? Robin, something has been bothering me. What is it? You think Wren is really here investigating by himself? Police don't usually work alone. Now that you mentioned it, that did seem odd. Are you saying he has a partner hidden somewhere? Do you think... Is he lying about being a detective? I don't know, but something strange is going on. I sat there, lost in thought. Jay, let's go to the lounge. Jay sighed heavily. How did I know that would be your answer? He didn't protest, though. As Jay got ready, I absent-mindedly cleaned up the mess left by the detective. What sort of game are you playing, Wren? I was determined to find out. Jay and I chose to wait until a little after dinner to return to the lounge. When we entered the car, we were surprised to be greeted by a whole crowd of people. Ah, Robin, you decided to join the fun after all. Ah, Robin, so good to see you again. And your companion as well. I didn't realize the old lady's got sprites too. That's awesome. The elegant woman was there too, as were the men who bickered about rugs during dinner. Everyone gave me various gestures of acknowledgement. Friendly-looking attendant, with the exception of a large attendant standing by himself in the corner of the car. One person was suspicious by his absence, though. Wren. He insisted I be here, yet he's nowhere to be found. Good afternoon, everyone. I wonder if he's going to sneak into our room after the fact. That would be sneaky as hell. Please, have a seat. What is that accent I did? That was awful, I'm sorry. He motioned to the empty sofa nearest him, which Jay and I obligingly took. I hope we're not intruding. Not at all, Robin. We're just talking about you, actually. Is that so? Only good things, I hope. Of course, dear. It seems you've charmed a great many people in the short time we've been together. A mysterious woman with a personal bodyguard boards a train out of the country. It's like the start of a romance novel. love her. I love her. These are all so good. I don't think I'm as interesting as all that. Come now, Robin. There's no need to be modest. There are a fair number of interesting things about you that you had no qualms sharing last night. Tell me, where is it you're from again? That's a rather personal question. Is it? The rest of us seemed to be discussing it just fine before you arrived. Of course, you don't have to answer if it makes you uncomfortable, Robin. Is this why you wanted me to come here, Wren? If that was his plan, why wasn't he here to egg them on? It's alright, Jay. As Fletcher said, I don't mind sharing. I'm from the capital, born and raised. That was a lie. I wasn't originally from the capital. I had stayed there long enough to be convincing. Saying where I was actually from could lead to even more suspicion. After all, it's not every day that the daughter of the wealthiest man in town goes missing. Ah, the capital! A fair few of us are from there. That's a magnificent mustache, sir, and I love it. It's nice to be right in the heart of Zephyr, isn't it? You don't even need to travel to board the train. Yes, my sister and I were just complaining about the trip from our hometown in the south. And you, handsome, where are you from? Same as Robin. I wondered if Jay was telling the truth, or simply going along with my lie. You were saying you live in the capital too, right, Mr. Rhodes? Yes, though I'm not originally from there, I moved for business. It's a veritable garden of industry. A businessman yourself then, Fletcher, what is it that you do? I'd rather not say. My enterprise is still in its infancy. It's bad luck to count your crows before they hatched. Isn't that saying chickens? Oh my god. Oh my god, I love it. Actually, I've read that the saying is crows instead of chickens in Gales. The woman suddenly gasped, causing me to jump a little. Could it be that you're originally from Gales, Mr. Rhodes? Fletcher didn't look pleased to be put on the spot. I've spent some time in Gales, yes. He offered no more information on the matter. He does not look thrilled. How interesting, Fletcher. Is it your business that takes you to Gales now? A amused smile crossed Fletcher's lips. It looked as though he wanted to laugh. Very astute, madame. But as I said, I don't wish to speak of such things at the moment. I have to say, I enjoyed your company last night, Miss Robin. I was afraid I wouldn't see you again. Fletcher deftly changed the subject. Well, it's obvious who's masterminding this interrogation. He's a smooth talker, I'll give him that. I do wonder, though, why you didn't attend. Why didn't you attend lunch or dinner? I'm afraid I wasn't feeling well this morning. I thought I might have to spend the entire day in my cabin, but thankfully I started feeling more myself in the afternoon. I'm so glad. It would have been a shame if we had to go without your sparkling conversation. I think I know what illness you're speaking of. We adults call it a hangover. Yes, a hangover. Thank you, Fletcher. Honestly, I was a little wary of leaving my cabin as well. It's rather chilling to think that there might be a criminal amongst us. I'm sure you needn't worry. The detective is here, after all. Doubt a murderer would try anything under the watchful eye of the police. The detective can't afford to let them get away, either. If he does, he might not be a policeman for much longer. Uh-oh. What's he talking about? What do you mean by that, Mr. Rhodes? The detective might lose his job. Oh, theory time. Fletcher is not actually a cop. Fletcher is some influential mother bleeper who's essentially strong-arming Wren into solving this case. Is Fletcher the villain? Would he really be fired for a single incident? Seems like a good, honest person to me. Most good, honest people aren't criminals. Eh? I try not to look concerned, but what Fletcher was saying was troubling. Oh my, what crimes has he committed? Perhaps I've said too much. Come now, you can't just accuse the detective of being a criminal and not elaborate. Fletcher heaved a small sigh. I suppose you're right. I have various sources inside the police department. They tell me Wren is quite the handful. He's rumored to have done, well, a whole laundry list of things, really. Tampering with evidence, breaking and entering, selling police information. He is the very definition of crooked. Oh no. Oh dear, he seems like such a nice man. He is a charismatic man. There is a difference. They say he's a spy, an eye on the inside, serving a master hidden in the shadows. There's no concrete proof, of course, but the department is eager to get rid of him. I suspect that should he fail to catch his culprit, his time as a detective will be over. And if that should happen, well, there's no use for an eye who can't see, is there? I think it's safe to assume that losing his job would be the least of his worries. Ah, tell me, does such a man sound like he can be trusted? Group was taken back by this revelation. Wow, what? Was Wren really capable of all that? Those are rather heavy allegations. These are merely rumors I have heard, which is why I was hesitant to share in the first place. I ask that you take all this with a grain of salt. A spy? Is that true? Was this the reason for Wren's suspicious lack of a partner? Why did Fletcher know all that? It doesn't sound like you at all. I had to remind myself that the person I thought I knew had been gone for over a decade. Just who are you now? Oh, not many people realize this, but the Gaelish rug was making processes entirely different from the Zephyri process. For example, conversation meandered back to more mundane topics, but my mind was still on Wren. If you say the word rug one more time, I shall sneak into your room tonight and smother you with one. Fine, the Gaelish mat-making process, then. If something tragic befalls you tonight, sir, at least we will know who the detective should investigate first. A door opened, drawing everyone's attention to the front of the car. Ah, speak of the devil. Wren had arrived, followed by the attendant that had been seen with him earlier. Oh, it seems I'm late to the party. It's good to see you all again. He cheerfully greeted everyone, but the group gave him a rather lackluster reception. Detective, it's good to see you too. Detective? Only the two older women and Fletcher seemed unperturbed. Welcome back, Detective. It's been a long day for you, hasn't it? If Wren noticed the less than enthusiastic atmosphere, he was good at hiding it. As Wren and the others exchanged pleasantries, the attendant approached Fletcher, leaning down to whisper something in his ear. Curious. The attendant retreated, leaving the car through the opposite exit. How did your search go, Wren? Can we finally put this murder mystery to bed? I've been able to gather quite a lot of information, actually. Collecting all the pieces to the puzzle comes first and foremost. Does this mean you're close to finding the culprit? Yes, do tell. Are you really here on the train? Even when they think you're a spy, they can't help but like you. Well, I would love to share. The game isn't over yet. It would be premature to show my hand before all the cards have been dealt. But you haven't folded yet, have you? That's quite telling, detective. Do you think so? Perhaps I'm bluffing. Your mysterious aura as intriguing as ever, Wren. Ha, you find me intriguing. How refreshing. I'm more accustomed to being called annoying. I suppose the novelty of my personality has worn off for my colleagues. They aren't the only ones. I find you as annoying as well. Fletcher chuckled. It seems that your constant chatter is starting to wear some of our company's patience, Wren. Oh my. Not fond of the detective glasses. He was certainly asking a lot of questions about Robin last night. It wasn't just about Robin. It just happened to be mostly about Robin. Perhaps that's the reason for Jay's prickly attitude. Intimidated, are we? Uh-oh. Not in the slightest. That's good, because intimidation was never my intention. Though I am sorry you find me so abrasive. I had hoped we could be friends. You know, form the, Robin Hood's White Knight Club. Jay gave Wren an incredulous look. Friends? He can't be serious. It was pretty bold of him to suggest such a thing while attempting to implicate us in a murder. What a lovely rivalry. How exciting to have two men fighting over you, Miss Robin. Wait, I'm not... I laughed nervously. Inconvenient is more like it. I keep this up. One or the other is likely to say something unnecessary. Ooh. Now this is interesting. I don't know. Let's go, Wren. I think it is just that their personalities clash. Though the detective does seem to be intentionally antagonizing my bodyguard. He really has no reason to do so. Ooh! Wren caught my meaning and sheepishly looked away. Oh. They both have cute pouty faces. I'm not sure how offering someone friendship is considered antagonizing, but if you insist. My apologies, Jay. I will never suggest such an awful thing again. That feels like the bad choice. He's still being facetious. Good. Why does it feel like I'm dealing with two bickering children? You are, and I love it. Fletcher gave a hearty laugh and turned to me. You're very authoritative, Robin. I suspect you'd make an excellent mother. It was an innocent enough comment, fairly close to what I had just been thinking myself. For some reason it made my skin crawl. Fletcher, this isn't the first time you said something rudely presumptuous to me. I'm beginning to wonder if you're doing it on purpose. Oh, it hadn't occurred to me that motherhood might be a sore subject for you. For some. Now that I think on it, of course you're right. Please forgive me. God, I keep fading in and out of that attempted southern drawl. It isn't always sticking. He's like fading between southern drawl and my horrible British accent. There was still a tinge of amusement on his face. That's your second strike. I won't be so forgiving a third time. Naturally. And whatever that was. My. Could it be that both Detective Wren and Mr. Rhodes are vying for Robin's attention? It certainly seemed that way last night. You'll have to keep a sharp eye on her, Jay, or one of them is likely to steal your sister away. I'm not vying for anything. Oh, to be young again. Putting on quite a show for the peanut gallery. Ladies, you're embarrassing me. Perhaps we could talk about something else. Wren laughed and reassured me they meant no harm, and the conversation moved on. The skies outside the train grew dark. Our numbers dwindled. The two older gentlemen excused themselves, but the conversation was still going strong. The topic had returned to the Scarecrow's Feast, the fall festival that was about to be held in Gales. I wasn't sure why Wren had insisted I return here. We were talking about nothing of consequence, and the detective didn't even seem interested in interrogating me this time. As he chatted happily with the other passengers, I couldn't help but wonder if the things Fletcher said were really true. He knows I was involved with Sullivan's murder. If he was in as much trouble as Fletcher implied, letting me go free put him in serious danger. And yet... I watched as Wren laughed at some joke I hadn't paid attention to. So what is it you're planning? Speaking of the feast, I found the most interesting book in my cabin. It detailed the origin and myth of witches. Oh my, a book about a witchcraft. What a rare find. Yes, I know. I've been reading it all morning. I simply couldn't put it down. Ah, you don't say. That does sound intriguing. I'd love to hear about it. For a fraction of a second, I thought I saw Fletcher give Wren a curious look. Come now, detective, I should think that would be really boring. Is our company so uninteresting that you'd rather hear a story meant for children? There we go, that's better. Ah. I wonder what sort of life you led that makes you think a story about witchcraft would be boring, Fletcher. A stuffy business life. I think it sounds like fun. I know I'd love to hear about it. Ah. Fletcher paused for a moment before answering with an air of mild frustration. I suppose you make a fair point. Vampire seemed to find it entertaining. That's good enough for me. As long as everyone else is on board, of course. Wren looked at Jay and I for our answer. Is now really the time? But I had to admit, I was interested. Yeah, me too. Not to mention Wren was being strangely insistent. I think I'd like to hear it as well. I do love a good story. Wren gave me a small, tired-looking smile. I thought you might. But I think most of us are interested in hearing it. Yes, perhaps we should let the majority rule. Yes, well... The elegant woman gave Fletcher a nervous look, but he nodded for her to continue. Once again excited, the elegant woman began telling her the story. Ahem. Oh? Oh. A long time ago, in a world without countries or kings, a beautiful maiden was said to wander in an endless black forest. Oh. Skin and hair as white as the moon, and eyes as red as rubies, she shone as though she were made of stars. She was loved and respected by all denizens of the woods, but the maiden had a special gift. That's a really pretty. Unlike the others who walked in this place, the maiden could not die. For what was seen as a blessing was also a curse. The maiden was forced to say goodbye to so many friends as they passed on to the next life. This broke the maiden's heart. Each time she bid farewell, it felt as though another piece of her was shattered. One day, as the maiden mourned the loss of yet another friend, a magpie approached her. Magpies were known for their trickery, and this one was no different. They coveted the maiden's power, so they conspired to steal it from her. Why are you so sad, my lady? Dearest Magpie, yet another of my beloved companions has left this world. So many have come and gone that I can hardly count them anymore. I fear that one day the rest of you will leave as well, and only I will remain. Be left alone here for eternity. I can think of nothing worse. That is a sad thought. But my lady needn't worry. We magpies are quite clever, you see. I believe I know how to prevent such a thing from happening. You do? Please tell me. The magpie, ever quick on its feet, concocted a grand lie. Though she herself cannot leave the forest, we birds are capable of doing so. My lady bestowed upon me one of her own eyes. Or then she would see the land from 2 different perspectives. Even if we were to part, our shared vision would mean we could always be together. And so when I too pass on from this world, my lady could see into the next. The maiden was trusting and kind, and the thought of eternal loneliness was frightening indeed. It seems such a small price to pay. Very well, I shall grant your request. Magpie couldn't believe their luck. They watched in awe as the maiden plucked out her eye, leaving nothing but a gaping black hole where it had once been. The maiden offered the glittering ruby orb to the magpie with trembling hands. Oh, please accept this gift, so that the 2 of us may be together forever. Magpie obliged. Taking it carefully in their beak, they swallowed the eye whole. Magpie felt a surge of energy, and their body began to writhe and twist. Perhaps it had been painful, but it was over so quickly that the magpie could not remember. Magpie spoke, and they did. It was with a new human form. It seems Our Lady's powers have affected us in ways we did not anticipate. Magpie bowed deeply to the maiden. This gift is something truly priceless. We could never thank you enough. Yes, we feel different as well. After all these years, we did not think we were capable of such change. It feels exhilarating. What would Our Lady have us do now? We shall do precisely as you said we would. Fly away, little bird, and see the world for us. We have spent too long living in these woods, experiencing the same events over and over. Now we wish to see something new. Magpie bowed again before shifting back to their previous form. They soared up into the sky and away from the sprawling black forest, taking the maiden's eye with them. And thus the first witch was born. Oh. It continues on after that. I've gone on quite long enough already. That was quite the story. What does this have to do with anything? It's an interesting story, but I still didn't see Wren's point. I apologize for being so obtuse earlier. That was most entertaining. There's no need for apologies, Mr. Rhodes. You're lucky she's being so reserved. I'm sure I'll be hearing about birds and witches the entire time we're in Gales. I understand that not everyone shares my enthusiasm for such things. Well, that's right, those 2 were together. I quite enjoyed it. Thank you, madam. It is a lovely story. Yes, one of our favorites, in fact. You already knew this story? Don't worry, dear. It's always fun to hear it again. And you told it so well. The elegant woman blushed. The story of a mischievous thief. It seemed to be quite common in folklore. Yes, but where Robin Hood was righteous and good, the magpie was not. Oh, is that what you think, Fletcher? Of course. Of course. Robin Hood stole with the intention of giving back to the people. The magpie is thinking only of himself. Stealing such a precious treasure at the expense of others is the epitome of greed, wouldn't you say? Well, that certainly is an interesting way to look at it. You seem to be familiar with this story as well, Mr. Rhodes. I have heard of it, yes. It's a common Galish fable. I don't understand. Why did the magpie want her eye? What exactly did it do? Yes, it is rather vague. Wren gave me a curious expression. Is this story important somehow? I thought it over. Eh? Sure, I know. Oh wow. Oh wow, the maiden was death, the magpie was death. I feel like those are two opposite perspectives. For the sake of trying one, the magpie was dead. The magpie was death, right? They were upset that the maiden didn't have to die, that she was breaking the rules. So they tricked her into giving up her power. That was right, it was a rather sad story. At least she won't be alone for eternity. I wonder. Have you heard this story before, perchance? No, this is the first time. A first witch is a monster meant to scare garrulous children into behaving. It's no more than a fairy tale. What is it you want me to get out of this, Wren? Now, Fletcher, don't be such a stick in the mud. You said you were familiar with this story. And you should also know that it's widely believed that the Maiden's Eye really existed. Is that so? How interesting! Oh yes, the Maiden's Eye is said to be a ruby gemstone of unparalleled beauty. A gemstone? Fletcher scowled. I am aware. But if such a stone ever existed, it's been lost to history. Many have searched for it and it's never been found. Perhaps you're right, though it is a lovely idea. Stone capable of bringing back the dead. This was no coincidence. Jay realized it as well. Put his hand to his chin, deep in thought. Is anything like that among the things we stole? What an intriguing mystery! I had no idea. I simply must read more of that book tonight. Fletcher seemed quite frustrated with its topic of conversation. Non-existent magical stones aside, I do wonder where that book came from. There was nothing like that in my own room. Now they mentioned it, I didn't remember seeing any books in our room earlier. Yet another mystery. I suspect the reason behind this one is rather ordinary. I assume it was study material left accidentally by one of the staff. I'm sure they would want to be well read on the subject of gales. You have an answer for everything, don't you, detective? I'm simply a problem solver. Fletcher looked like he had more to say about that, but was quickly distracted as another attendant had entered the car. He rushed to Fletcher's side, panting as though he had run the length of the train. Fred watched as he leaned down and whispered in Fletcher's ear, just as the other attendant had. Fletcher clenched his jaw and scowled, clearly upset by whatever the man had said. Pardon me, everyone, there is something I must take care of. Fletcher stood and made for the door the attendant had just come through. What is going on here? Something wrong, Mr. Rhodes? Apparently, some passengers have decided they are above the rules here. Such thinking is very dangerous. But don't worry, it's nothing I can't handle. In such a small space, order must be preserved, or we will quickly devolve into chaos. I urge the rest of you to stay put for the time being, as a precaution. Oh, turned to the attendant that had just arrived. Betters, keep an eye on everyone. Browse with me. The large attendant who had been stationed in the corner of the car all evening obediently went to Fletcher's side. Fletcher paused at the door, turning around to address Wren. Detective, I believe we had an agreement about how you would conduct yourself while on my train. I hope I can trust you not to go back on your word. Your train? Well, of course not, Fletcher. I'd never do such a thing. Your train? I suppose there's no hiding it anymore. I may as well come clean. This train is a passion project of mine. My company built it. Because of me, Miss Robin, that your trip is even possible. My mind raced as the pieces fell into place. I wasn't aware. My apologies. Apologies aren't necessary. I hadn't intended to reveal that fact. Now, if you'll excuse me. And with that, he disappeared through the doorway. I hope everything's all right. I can't believe Mr. Rhodes is the owner of the Whirlwind. Why do you think he kept this secret? Perhaps he had wanted to mingle without the pressures that come with such things. It's hard to know who your real friends are when everyone wants something from you. I'm sure they'll be embarking in your favor, Robin. I just get tired of women chasing him for his assets alone. The others were talking about gossip again, but I wasn't paying them any attention. My eyes met Wren's, and I could see the gears turning behind them. Fletcher had all but explicitly told him to behave himself. What is it he doesn't want you to do? It seems we'll be stuck here for a while. Perhaps we should play a game. What do you have in mind, Detective? He smirked and held up 3 fingers. It's called 3 Lies. Ooh, it's a gayish drinking game. Have you heard of it? Huh? As a matter of fact, I have. Wren and I had played this game the very last time I saw him. Oh. A gayish drinking game, huh? Well then, we will see how this plays out next time.